Good morning, everyone. It's time to go on the record. This morning, tackling the biggest issues facing the state with Stan Rosenberg, the president of the Massachusetts Senate. From the trouble with the T to problems facing DCF. Plus,
American governors respond with resistance to resettling Syrian refugees. Others disagree.
and who holds the most power on Beacon Hill? The poll that gives one Bay State leader a solid win.
From WCPB Boston, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Ruth. Thank you for joining us this morning on this Thanksgiving weekend. Our guest is the Massachusetts Senate President, Stan Rosenberg. Enough said, a very powerful man on Beacon Hill. Sir, thank you for joining us on
Happy to be
days
with you
after
as
Thanksgiving.
always.
Great to see you.
So the big news, the one that everyone's talking about, of course, is what happened in the aftermath of Paris. And the Governor Baker's stance on Syrian refugees has weaved a bit since those bombings. First, he said he would not accept them. Now he won't sign a letter that was sent from 27 governors, Republican governors, to the president opposing the resettlement program. He says Massachusetts will honor its commitment now to refugees. After all, what's going on here?
So what I understand was that the governor was trying to communicate that his first responsibility is to ensure that the Commonwealth is safe and the people feel safe. And then his second response was to say, I want to make sure that the vetting system in Washington is secure and will make sure that we are well served and well protected. You know, in the end, we did a little bit of data research on this. From Syria, over the last 6 years, I think we've had 24 immigrants from Syria. So it's not like there's a flood of people coming from Syria. Nonetheless, people want to feel secure. They want to know that their government is doing a good job making sure that only the people who should be here are welcomed into our country and into our state.
Did you play a part in convincing him to move from where his initial stance was to where it is now?
I actually had no discussion. No, we didn't have a leadership meeting this week, so we didn't have the opportunity to
Did he do the right thing to be cautious at first and then move to a, shall I say, a more open policy?
I think the mistake he made was by using the word no in response to the first question and then thinking out loud after that. He basically, his responsibility is to make sure that our public safety system is working, and in a situation like that, it's extraordinarily important. And so he's now adjusted and made clear what his intention is.
Other than political posturing, though, isn't it, you know, the governors are really powerless to prevent it in their states, are they?
Well, that is true. The federal government has total control over who is admitted to the country, and once they come into the country, because we have the right of freedom of travel in this country, they can move anywhere in the country that they choose. And so the only thing he could control is a minor amount of state-funded services. He can't even control whether those folks would have access to federally funded services.
Today, it's Sunday morning, so I want to talk about DraftKings, which has become a major event on not just NFL, because it's NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and they actually want to go to Europe, which is another story. It's a business that's fighting for survivor nationally, though, because it is expanding so rapidly. First question for you. Do you think it's a game of chance or skill?
So when I think about it, I substitute the word athlete with the word horse. And when I think of it that way, for me, it's absolutely a combination of gambling and skill, because you have to assess the capacity of the athlete. You have to measure them up against the performance with other teams and other players and other teams, et cetera. So there is some skill to it, but in the end, you can't control how many touchdowns will actually occur, but you can certainly bet on how many touchdowns.
You did use the word gambling. So
oh,
you think
I think it is.
There's a part of that?
It has to be regulated as a form of gambling.
The Attorney General, Maura Healey, has put forth some regulations. Do you think the best course of action is for states to get a... Sorry, I'm going to boil it down to the bottom line. She's talked about regulations. The state of New York wants to put it on hold till they can assess it. Nevada, the same thing. Is the bottom line the state wants a cut of a $4 billion business, and they got to find a way to get in there?
First responsibility is to make sure it's honest and that we protect the integrity of the system so the people who play know that it's an honest game. The second piece of the puzzle is all other gaming, we collect revenue of some sort, and so therefore I think we should take a look at it as well.
So this is gaming as far as you're concerned?
As far as I'm concerned, it is in part gaming, and therefore it needs to be regulated, and we should be getting some revenue from it. And if for nothing else, then for addiction, to help pay for addiction services,
Do you play fantasy football? Do you play
I do not.
DraftKings? You do not.
I do not.
For full disclosure, I do not either. I was just curious if you did.
No, I do not.
I don't think anyone's going to ask, but I don't either.
I gamble every 2 years on election day. I put my name on the ballot and I see if I
When you
win.
get in the car and you drive to work,
So
you're
no
gambling,
interest,
right?
no
I
interest
know.
in looking into it or seeing what it does? Or,
Oh, we're definitely working on it.
but I mean playing yourself.
No, I have no interest in doing that.
Okay, let's switch the conversation over to
I don't judge anyone who does, by the way, but
Yep,
I have no
yep,
interest in it.
energy. There's a move afoot to allow a Danish company to build 100 turbines. It's a wind farm, basically, off of Martha's Vineyard. Is this a good idea?
A handful of legislators went to Denmark to look at wind energy. A group of legislators the same week went to Quebec to look at hydropower. We need to continue to diversify our renewable energy portfolio here in Massachusetts. And so I think the answer is yes, properly put together so that the industry can grow and thrive and meet some of our energy needs.
But
And
as
look
far
at
as-
what we've done with solar. We're the top solar state in the country, in spite of not being a sunny state.
Well, drive along the Pike, though. All the free spaces
Absolutely.
along the Pike have solar panels.
And we have heavy winter, but we still are a productive solar state, and we're #1 in installations in the country.
But what you know about this Danish company and this wind farm that they are proposing,
Well, I'm not sure about their specific proposal.
so you know nothing about it and
No,
you're
no,
not
no,
willing
no.
to weigh in on
We
that?
definitely want to get some offshore wind here, properly installed. It's going to contribute to our green energy future.
But you don't know if this is the
I
answer?
don't know whether that
Okay.
proposal is a good one and the one that will win. There ought to be competitive bidding processes, et cetera.
Sure.
And but we want to make room in the portfolio for offshore wind.
You ready for the OTR Pop Quiz?
Never.
Oh, come on now. This is
Okay,
Thanksgiving,
ready.
so we're ready to rock and roll.
Thanksgiving.
Your political skills at the State House are well known, but even your closest colleagues will concede that they are no match for your musical skills.
Oh my gosh.
You played the tuba as a student at UMass Amherst.
And I tried to play it in the Senate last week.
And well, here you go. Here's
Didn't
some video
go
of that.
so well.
Take a look. All right, here's the video. Take a look.
It's been 35 years since I got this guy.
All right, so
What's the hardest part about blowing?
I didn't have enough wind, and my embouchure
Wait a minute.
is weak. I didn't have any muscles
a
left in my
politician
embouchure.
didn't have enough wind?
Well, that's why I switched to tuba. When I couldn't play tuba well, I decided to go into politics.
All right, so let's test your vast knowledge about bands and their instruments with the OTR Pop Quiz. Question 1, UMass Amherst has the largest marching band in New England with nearly 400 members. The team's nickname is obviously the Minutemen. What's the band's nickname?
The power and class of
Bingo.
New England.
Power and class of New England. Question 2, we have an actual prop for this question. So we're going to bring in that prop. And the question is, can you actually play some of the UMass fight song?
No.
Can you play anything on the tuba?
This is
an
not a
orchestra
tuba, it's a
tuba.
baritone
Yeah, there you
horn.
go. Okay,
Do
there
we
you go.
do I get a point for that?
Yeah, you get a point for
We will
that.
give you a point for that.
3 blind mice. That was very good.
I think this is a first for OTR, isn't
And
it?
see, that was easier because I needed less wind.
That was brilliant.
Seriously.
That was
Okay.
brilliant.
I'm writing that
Continue on
down.
the
Senate
record.
President says he doesn't have
You
enough
know, we have to
wind.
continue the quiz, but I think we should stop there. We'll be right back.